Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are tearing into a stack of sources that really challenge everything we thought we knew about, corporate and organizational success.
hmm
We're doing a deep dive into the very nature of vision-driven leadership. And it's not just an operational manual, it feels more like a radical new framework.
It really is.
We're asking this central provocative question: what if the truest, the most enduring measure of leadership isn't what you accomplish in the visible world, but what you believe into existence in the unseen?
That's precisely the mission.
Yeah.
We're unpacking a framework that asks leaders to look past, the quarterly reports and all the accolades.
Right.
We need to distinguish between vision that is received, this profound ethical organizational mandate, and vision driven solely by personal ambition or ego.
And that feels so relevant right now. The global landscape is changing so fast that leaders need a purpose that doesn't just, erode with the next market shift.
Exactly. We need to define success in a way that actually lasts.
Yeah. And the sources, they immediately highlight this core temptation that I think almost every leader faces today.
Mm.
In a world obsessed with speed and immediate feedback, we're tempted to trade that enduring vision for short-term visibility. We swap conviction for convenience,
Sure.
purpose for profit.
Purpose for profit.
Yeah.
So what does this alternative, this genuinely vision-driven success, what does that actually look like? I mean, how do you even keep score?
Well, the material outlines three pretty fundamental transformations that completely reset the metrics.
Okay.
The first one moves us beyond wealth or position.
Okay.
So traditionally, we measure leadership by, the size of the organization, the influence, personal wealth. But here, true success is defined by something much deeper.
Which is?
It's your rigorous adherence to your foundational mission and your commitment to fulfilling the specific purpose you were called to address. Its obedience is the ultimate measure.
So, okay, if I'm understanding this, the ultimate measure moves from public display, like accolades, to internal fidelity. Obedience to the mission.
That's it. So if my organization grows 10 times its size, but I had to sacrifice the core why to get there, under this framework, I've technically failed.
Exactly. That is the shift. The scoreboard is internal and ethical, not external and financial. The second transformation is focused on human-centered leadership.
Okay, what does that mean?
This really gets at the common mistake where people are treated merely as instruments like cogs used to execute the leader's personal vision.
The classic sacrifice the small guy for the big project mentality.
Precisely that. This framework argues that people are the very purpose of the vision. The vision only achieves its enduring power when the leader honors, empowers, and genuinely values those they serve.
So if you achieve these monumental goals, but you leave a wake of burned out, demoralized, or exploited employees,
Then your success is transient. It's ultimately hollow.
I appreciate that framing. I mean, it means the process is just as important as the product. What about the final metric shift?
The third is innovation with intent. We are saturated with innovation right now. New tech, new models, new disruptions every single day.
It's constant.
But a lot of it is just fleeting trend chasing. This framework demands that strategic innovation be grounded in profound, ethically driven insight. It's about building enduring impact and legacy, not just responding to the latest trend cycle.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Think of the contrast between a company that builds sustainable, essential infrastructure versus one that builds the next fast fashion app. One creates systems that persist, the other just capitalizes on a moment.
That makes leadership less about being the captain of a corporate ship and more about being the careful steward of a profound, long-term project.
A generational project in a lot of cases.
Yeah, like pivot to the origin story of this kind of leadership, because this feels like where the real divergence happens between standard ambition and true vision. The sources ask, is vision born of ambition, or is it received through profound insight?
And the material is emphatic on this. True. Enduring vision is not primarily conceived in human ambition. It is received as an unveiling of a higher way or a necessary solution.
What's the difference?
Human ambition is limited by our current capacity. And frankly, it's driven by ego, what we think we can achieve or what we can get.
Like that classic biblical example the sources use, the Tower of Babel.
Right. The tower wasn't just a construction project. It was a pure exercise in ego to make a name for themselves. And the result? Chaos. Fragmentation, confusion.
And the contrast to that would be?
You contrast that with leaders like Nehemiah, who wasn't driven by a desire for personal glory, but by this profound sense of brokenness. He saw the broken walls of his homeland and felt a divine imperative to fix it.
So if I'm a leader listening to this, how do I audit my own vision? How do I know if it's ego or if it's genuinely received insight? What are the signs?
There are four key indicators. First, there's usually a burden or deep unease. It's not just a passing thought. It's a kind of holy dissatisfaction, a persistent problem that keeps you up at night.
It's a non-negotiable problem that you feel compelled to solve.
That's it. Second, it requires moments of solitude and reflection. Profound clarity rarely emerges in the middle of a crowded, noisy schedule. Vision often germinates when you deliberately withdraw, when you silence the noise.
That's the strategic timeout that most busy executives refuse to take.
They do. Third is ethical and foundational illumination. A true vision has to align with your organization's constitution, your ethical mandate. Those principles serve as the ultimate filter.
So if the vision requires you to compromise your core values,
It's not true insight. It's a strategy masked as purpose.
that's a very practical test. And the fourth?
A sense of calling, not just choice. The vision feels less like something you picked because it sounded good and more like something that magnetically picked you, an inevitable trajectory.
Okay, so once that profound insight is received, it can't just stay a quiet whisper. It has to become actionable. How do you go from that moment of clarity to a plan people can actually run with?
You have to move from whispers into words. And the primary way to do that is writing it clearly. The source references the ancient wisdom of Habakkuk 2.2. Write the vision and make it plain on tablets so that a runner may read it.
That phrase, so that a runner may read it, is incredible. It suggests simplicity, speed, and shared understanding all at once.
That's the key. Clarity does a few critical things. It creates shared understanding, so everyone's working toward the same goal. It provides focus, acting as that North Star for all your decisions.
And it lets you measure yourself.
And, importantly, yes, it serves as a standard for evaluation. You can't measure success or failure against a vague aspiration.
So when you write it down, what qualities ensure that it's not just plain, but powerful?
The material suggests 6 qualities. It must be concise, not a novel, clear, unambiguous, and compelling. It has to motivate.
And challenging, I'd imagine.
Crucially, yes,
Huh.
it must be challenging. It has to require courage and an expansion of capacity. Otherwise, it's just a goal, not a vision. And then, of course, future-oriented and ethically sound.
Writing it clearly gives it structure, but telling it compellingly, that gives it life. People are narrative creatures. We respond to stories, not just bullet points.
Absolutely. A sticky vision story requires 3 things. First, a deep emotional connection. You have to address the why before the what. Paint a picture of the pain you're solving and the ideal future you're creating.
And you have to make it vivid.
Second, yes, use vivid language and imagery, grounding complex truths in relatable scenarios. Think about the power of a parable. It resonates instantly because you can see it.
You can visualize the outcome.
Precisely. And the final critical piece is involving the audience. You have to shift the narrative from, this is my vision, to, how do you see yourself in this future story?
That's the move that transforms employees from just passive recipients into active co-creators of the movement.
And that's what makes a vision endure past the originator.
The power of that shared narrative is it's everything. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech is the absolute pinnacle of this. It wasn't a policy statement. It was a deeply moral, prophetic narrative that mobilized an entire generation.
That is the narrative power of conviction, which is far, far greater than the narrative power of ambition.
But any vision of that magnitude, anything that genuinely challenges the status quo, it's guaranteed to generate friction. The sources strongly suggest that resistance isn't a sign of failure, but it's actually evidence of significance.
Opposition is inevitable. And it starts internally with doubt and fear, that whisper that says you are too small or you're unqualified for the task.
Right, imposter syndrome.
Then externally, you face skepticism and criticism from peers who question the feasibility or, the financial returns. Then there is that massive force of systemic inertia,
Oh, we've always done it this way crowd.
the most powerful force in the universe. And finally, the very real pressure of resource scarcity, where your limits test your operational resolve.
So if I'm facing down that wall of cynicism and limited resources, how do I make sure that resistance acts as refinement burning off the dross, rather than just crippling the entire project?
There are 4 strategies for resilience. First, you have to stay anchored in your core mandate. When the winds of circumstance shift, your founding principles have to be that unwavering compass. You relentlessly revisit the why.
That requires deep trust in the original insight.
Absolutely. Second, build community. not competition. The visionary cannot operate in isolation. You have to cultivate a trusted circle of advisors, of coworkers who genuinely believe with you.
Because isolation is lethal to long-term vision.
It's the fast track to burnout and distorted perspective. Third, lead with integrity at every scale. Whether you're making a minor budget adjustment or a major acquisition, your character has to uphold the purpose you represent. Honesty, transparency, they build trust.
Okay, what about flexibility? Do I need to be completely rigid in the execution?
No, not at all. That leads to the fourth strategy. Adapt without compromise.
Hmm.
You have to understand the crucial distinction here. Flexibility is wisdom. That's adapting the strategy, the how. But faithfulness is obedience remaining unyielding in the core purpose, the what and why.
Change the route, but not the destination.
You've got it.
That's the perfect bridge to execution.
Yeah.
The need for faith with feet. You can have the most profound vision, but it's just a beautiful dream without diligent implementation. What bridge connects that inspiration to sustained movement?
Strategic execution. The material emphasizes that execution involves breaking that grand vision down into actionable, measurable steps, short, mid, and long term. You need clear plans, processes, and metrics for accountability.
But it's about stewardship, not micromanagement.
It has to be. The focus is on ensuring every resource is serving the vision. And within that process, you must foster a culture of continuous improvement, where setbacks are just data points for learning, not reasons to abandon the mission.
So why does this shift from ambition-driven to insight-driven leadership, why does it matter so intensely right now?
Because the world is rapidly moving past the old industrial mindset. The one obsessed with control, predictable output, quantifiable profit above all else.
Right.
Today's era of global complexity and, frankly, widespread spiritual hunger demands leaders with profound discernment. The stakes are no longer just quarterly profits, they're cultural and spiritual legacies.
You mentioned three massive global challenges earlier. How does the lack of this kind of leadership lead to something like spiritual erosion?
Spiritual erosion in this context is the loss of collective meaning. If leaders only focus on the what, the why disappears. That leads to cynicism, burnout. Relational fragmentation is the breakdown of community because people are treated as resources, not partners. And ethical drift happens when short-term gain constantly outweighs your foundational values.
In essence, leaders driven solely by self-serving ambition become part of the problem.
They do. The solution lies in a fusion. Ambition aligned with profound insight. The future belongs to those visionaries who combine strategic excellence with spiritual depth.
So they need both courage and compassion.
They have to lead with courage, the audacity to pursue the unseen and genuine compassion, the deep desire for the flourishing of everyone in their sphere of influence. It's innovation combined with the humility to follow a higher mandate. Ultimately, this deep dive shows that the transformation required is one of faithful stewardship. Success is not measured by the scope of your influence, but by the alignment of your daily obedience to your core, enduring purpose.
And now, the challenge for you is to move from reading and inspiration to intention and action. The material encourages you to outline your own vision, map short, mid, and long-term goals, all measurably tied to your core purpose. Then, identify emerging leaders in your sphere and start actively mentoring them in this framework. The final provocative thought for you to carry forward is this. When your leadership ends, will those who follow not only continue your work, the projects you started, but will they still carry your why? That is the measure of a truly enduring vision.